It didn't begin with a statement, it began with a step, and Kamala Harris, standing behind her podium, didn't wait for applause, didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for the moderator's cue, she simply walked, and the walk wasn't fast, wasn't slow, wasn't dramatic, it was deliberate, and the audience didn't cheer, they held their breath, and Donald Trump, standing across the stage, didn't move, didn't blink, didn't shift, he froze, and the moderator, caught between protocol and presence, didn't interrupt, he watched, and the walk became a moment, not because of distance, but because of direction, and Harris, heels clicking against the polished floor, crossed the space between podiums, not to confront, not to perform, but to offer a handshake, and the gesture wasn't rehearsed, it was real, and Trump's eyes didn't widen, they locked, and the silence that followed wasn't passive, it was powerful, and Harris's hand extended, palm open, fingers relaxed, and Trump didn't reach. He recoiled, not physically, but emotionally, and the room didn't erupt, it evaporated, and the walk became a symbol, a stance, a statement, and Harris didn't flinch, she waited, and Trump didn't respond, he recalibrated, and the moderator didn't redirect, he paused, and the audience didn't react, they reflected, and the walk, that simple, silent, unscripted gesture, became the fracture line in the architecture of the debate, and Harris, still standing, still waiting, didn't withdraw. She returned, and the walk back wasn't retreat, it was rhythm, and the space between them, once neutral, became narrative, and the debate, once structured, had become symbolic, and the walk wasn't about dominance, it was about dignity, and Trump's reaction, that frozen, flickering stillness, became the echo, and the echo didn't fade, it deepened, and the walk, that haunting, human pause, became the loudest opening of all, and the question wasn't, why did she walk? It was, why didn't he move, and the answer, unspoken but felt, was, because presence isn't volume, it's how you move when watched. It wasn't hesitation, it was calculation, and when Kamala Harris walked across the stage, hand extended, posture poised, the room didn't erupt, it froze, and Donald Trump, standing tall, didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't reach, he locked, and the freeze wasn't physical, it was philosophical, and the audience, sensing the tension, didn't cheer, they leaned in, and the moderator, caught between protocol and presence, didn't redirect, he paused, and the freeze became a moment, not of weakness, but of weight, and Trump's eyes didn't wander, they narrowed, and Harris's hand, still extended, didn't tremble, it held, and the silence between them wasn't awkward, it was engineered, and the freeze became a frame, a force, a philosophy, and Trump didn't speak, he stared, and the stare wasn't empty, it was strategic, and Harris didn't flinch, she waited, and the room didn't breathe, it braced, and the freeze wasn't just a reaction, it was a refusal, and the refusal wasn't loud, it was loaded, and the moment, that fragile, flickering stillness, became the loudest chapter of all, and the freeze wasn't about fear, it was about framing, and Trump's posture didn't collapse, it coiled, and Harris's gesture didn't fade, it echoed, and the moderator didn't interrupt, he observed, and the freeze became a mirror, showing not just the tension, but the transformation, and the debate, once structured, had become symbolic, and the freeze wasn't just strategic, it was sacred, and the question wasn't, why didn't he move? It was, what did his stillness reveal? And the answer, unspoken but felt, was, everything, and the freeze didn't end the moment, it elevated it, and the silence that followed wasn't passive, it was powerful, and the freeze, that haunting, human pause, became the philosophy of presence, and the philosophy didn't fade, it deepened. It wasn't confusion, it was calibration, and the moderator, seated center stage with a clipboard that now felt more like a question mark than a guide, watched Kamala Harris walk across the stage, watched Donald Trump freeze, and didn't speak, he blinked, and the blink wasn't procedural, it was philosophical, because the debate had shifted, not in content but in cadence, and the moderator, trained to redirect, to restore rhythm, suddenly found himself in a moment that demanded something deeper, reflection, and the silence between Harris and Trump had already reshaped the room, and the walk, that deliberate, unscripted gesture, had already fractured the format, and the moderator's blink became a third silence, a triangulation of tension, and the audience, sensing the shift, didn't murmur, they waited, and the moderator's eyes moved slowly from Harris's poised hand to Trump's locked posture to the space between them, and the clipboard lowered slightly, not in surrender, but in surrender to the moment, and the blink stretched, not awkwardly, but artfully, and the moderator, who had opened the debate with scripted neutrality, now sat in unscripted presence, and the question wasn't, who speaks next? It was, what does silence allow? And the blink became a frame, a philosophy, a force, and the moderator, still silent, became part of the story, not as referee, but as reflector, and the debate, once reactive, became reflective, and the audience didn't demand a response, they absorbed the stillness, and the moderator's blink became a mirror, showing not just the tension, but the transformation, and the silence wasn't just strategic, it was sacred, and the moderator, finally lifting his gaze, said softly, let's continue, but the moment had already continued without words, and the blink, that fragile, flickering stillness, had become the loudest moderation of all, and the debate wasn't about control anymore, it was about consciousness, and the moderator's blink didn't restore order, it revealed depth, and the silence that followed wasn't just procedural, it was philosophical, and the debate, once structured, had become symbolic, and the moderator, once invisible, had become the echo. It wasn't retreat, it was rhythm, and after Kamala Harris extended her hand, after Donald Trump froze, after the moderator blinked, Harris turned, not abruptly, not theatrically, but deliberately, and walked back to her podium, and the walk wasn't a reversal, it was a revelation, and the space she crossed, once neutral, had become narrative, and the distance between podiums wasn't just physical, it was philosophical, and the audience, sensing the shift, didn't cheer, they calculated, and Trump, still frozen, didn't follow, he fortified, and the moderator, still watching, didn't redirect, he reflected, and the doctrine of distance began to unfold, not in words, but in posture, and Harris, now standing again behind her podium, didn't speak immediately, she waited, and the silence wasn't empty, it was engineered, and the distance between them, once ignored, became intentional, and the doctrine wasn't about separation, it was about symbolism, and Harris's walk had reframed the stage, not as a battlefield, but as a canvas, and Trump's stillness had painted a portrait, not of power, but of pause, and the audience didn't just see two candidates, they saw two philosophies, and the doctrine of distance became a mirror, showing how presence isn't proximity, it's posture, and Harris's return wasn't retreat, it was rhythm, and Trump's reaction wasn't resistance, it was revelation, and the moderator, still silent, became the echo, and the doctrine of distance didn't divide the debate, it deepened it, and the question wasn't, why didn't they meet? It was, what did the space between them reveal, and the answer, unspoken but felt, was, everything, and the distance, that fragile, flickering space, became the loudest symbol of all, and the doctrine didn't fade, it evolved, and the debate, once reactive, had become reflective, and the doctrine of distance remained, not as performance, but as principle. It didn't take long, it never does, and within minutes of Kamala Harris's walk, Trump's freeze, and the moderator's blink, the clips began to circulate, and the audience, not just in the room, but online, began to react, and the reactions weren't unified, they were fractured, and some called Harris bold, brave, unfiltered, saying, finally, someone moved with meaning, while others called her staged, performative, calculated, saying, this isn't leadership, it's theater, and the walk. That haunting, human gesture, became the center of the conversation, not the words, not the policies, not the podiums, and Trump's freeze was dissected as strategic, as stubborn, as symbolic, and the silence, that fragile, flickering stillness, became the loudest legacy of all, and the audience didn't just react, they reflected, and the comment sections became classrooms, and the threads became think pieces, and one user wrote, she didn't speak, she moved, and another replied, stillness is resistance, and the clips were shared by activists, by analysts, by artists, and the moment became more than political, it became cultural, and the audience didn't just choose sides, they chose philosophies, and the walk became a mural, a metaphor, a movement, and the reactions weren't just emotional, they were existential, and the debate, once confined to a stage, had spilled into the psyche, and the audience, once passive, became participants, and the silence, once feared, became foundational, and the reactions weren't just about who spoke, they were about who didn't, and the question wasn't, who won the debate. It was, who understood the moment, and the answer, unspoken but felt, was, the one who let movement speak, and the audience, fractured but focused, began to build a new kind of discourse, one that didn't reward volume, but honored vision, and the reactions didn't end, they evolved, and the walk, that deliberate, unscripted gesture, became the loudest symbol of all. It wasn't just a walk, it was a window, and as the clips circulated, as the reactions fractured, as the silence echoed, analysts began to dissect the moment, not as politics, but as philosophy, and the gesture, that deliberate, unscripted movement, became a curriculum, and Kamala Harris's walk wasn't framed as defiance, it was framed as design, and the philosophy of gesture began to unfold, not in headlines, but in essays, in podcasts, in classrooms, and one analyst said, she didn't interrupt, she intervened, and another replied, it wasn't confrontation, it was choreography, and the gesture became a symbol, a stance, a study, and Trump's freeze was reframed, not as resistance, but as ritual, and the space between them, once neutral, became narrative, and the philosophy of gesture wasn't about dominance, it was about dignity, and Harris's movement was mapped like a poem, each step a syllable, each pause a punctuation, and the debate, once reactive, had become reflective, and the gesture wasn't just political, it was poetic, and the audience didn't just watch, they witnessed, and the philosophy of gesture became a mirror, showing how presence isn't volume, it's velocity, and Harris's walk wasn't loud, it was luminous, and Trump's stillness wasn't silence, it was structure, and the moderator's blink wasn't indecision, it was invitation, and the gesture, that haunting, human pause, became the loudest philosophy of all, and the analysts didn't just interpret, they illuminated, and the gesture didn't fade, it deepened, and the philosophy of gesture remained, not as performance, but as principle, and the question wasn't, was it planned? It was it powerful? And the answer, unspoken but felt, was, yes, and the philosophy didn't end, it evolved. It didn't come as a rebuttal, it came as a reflection, and Kamala Harris, who had walked across the stage, who had offered a hand, who had returned in silence, finally spoke, not to counter, but to clarify, and her voice, low, deliberate, unshaken, said, power isn't volume, it's how you move when watched, and the line didn't land like a punch, it landed like a pause, and the room didn't erupt, it absorbed, and the echo began, not in sound, but in stillness, and Donald Trump, still standing, didn't respond, he recalibrated, and the moderator, still watching, didn't redirect, he reflected, and the audience, once fractured, began to unify, not in agreement, but in awareness, and the echo wasn't just a reaction, it was a revelation, and Harris's final line became a mural, a mantra, a movement, and the debate, once reactive, had become reflective, and the echo wasn't just spoken, it was felt, and the audience didn't cheer, they breathed, and the silence, that fragile, flickering stillness, became the loudest legacy of all, and Harris's presence wasn't performative, it was poetic, and the echo became a curriculum, a compass, a culture, and the debate didn't end with applause, it ended with awareness, and the question wasn't, who won? It was, who witnessed, and the answer, unspoken but felt, was, the one who let silence speak, and the echo didn't fade, it deepened, and the philosophy of presence remained, not as performance, but as principle, and the moment, that haunting, human pause, became a parable, and the parable didn't end, it evolved, and the echo, that final, quiet truth, became the signature of the saga, and the signature didn't shout, it shimmered.